This is Digital Work Diaries, a podcast where we talk about research stories on the changing nature of work, hosted by the Digital Work Lab of Victoria University of Wellington.
Hi, Julian. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk about your recent paper titled Working from the Metaverse, a Distraction Management Perspective. It's a fascinating topic, and I'm looking forward to diving into your research. Could you start by briefly explaining what this study is about and how it fits into your broader research interests?
Yes, hi Haley, and thank you for the invitation. So I like to study extreme cases that may represent some sort of the future of knowledge work. And working from the metaverse is certainly one of those cases that is not yet accepted in the mainstream. And that's what makes it interesting to me.
Great. And what motivated you and your team to explore the topic of distraction management in the metaverse, specifically in the context of solo work?
Yeah, so when I read the literature about, working with virtual reality and so on, I was amazed by the focus on collaboration. And well, 9 out of 10 papers are about, okay, how can we better collaborate using digital technologies and these emerging virtual work spaces. And well, then I looked at my own work and said, okay, if I want to produce meaningful knowledge work outcomes, then, well, most of my time needs to be spent alone without distractions, and I must be able to concentrate. And then this research or this focus on collaboration is striking to me because it doesn't focus on the experience of the single knowledge worker. So we wanted to kind of take this perspective and provide a different view on the topic as opposed to the literature on collaboration.
Really thoughtful point. And what was the main research question or problem that this paper aimed to address?
Yeah, so we set out to study how individual knowledge workers experience a virtual work environment, so a virtual office, a virtual desktop setting, and what kinds of distractions come along their way. So we wanted to know how this affects the distractions that knowledge workers experience in their physical environment. So let's say they work in their home office. There might be distractions and how these are eliminated or maybe hidden through immersion, and then also the distractions that come from this new virtual environment, because we saw some hints coming from the industry and how these virtual workspaces are designed, that there might be new types of distractions that knowledge workers need to face when they use those technologies.
Great. And could you describe the research design and the methods you used for this study, and why did you choose this particular approach?
Yeah, we took a qualitative approach, and it was not very easy to do this because most knowledge workers, employees in a company, they have very little experience with working fully immersed in virtual reality. So we wanted to create an experience for them that we could then interview them about. And this is what we did, but there were very little examples of similar research designs. So we went from qualitative experiments, which was a little bit problematic because it raised certain expectations of how we would control that virtual environment, to basically a two-staged qualitative study of this experience. So our participants spent 30 to 40 minutes in VR, solving or conducting certain tasks, which some were complicated and some were not. Sometimes they were alone, sometimes they were not alone. And then we interviewed them later after that experience. And that's how we produced qualitative data for our analysis.
Great. Let's move on to another point in your paper. The paper introduces two central concepts, distraction shielding and arousal filtering. Can you explain what these mean in simple terms and why they're important?
Yeah, absolutely. So distraction shielding is about the physical layer. So imagine the VR headset that you might wear when you work. And yeah, the ability to use these devices, these physical devices, to keep distractions from entering your vision or your eyesight or hearing them, whatever. And it also applies to the application layer. So now we're moving into the new distractions coming from these virtual workplace applications. And here there might be, knowledge workers could shield those distractions too, using certain individual strategies that may or may not be facilitated by these applications. And then for arousal filtering refers to the third layer, which is the cognitive layer. So there might be distractions in a virtual environment that the user cannot control, and then it's up to their ability to filter those distractions. And yeah, here it's a very individual experience, because distractions are not always negative. And if you, for example, experience a distraction that could motivate you or improve your task performance even, and if I experience the same distraction, it might have negative outcomes on my performance. And it also differs with the complexity of the task. So yeah, this is what arousal filtering addresses.
Great, that adds a lot of depth. What were some of the most surprising or significant findings from your study? Were there any unexpected results?
I guess surprising was that when we talked with all those knowledge workers about the experience, that it was so different for them, or different people have different experiences and preferences. So yeah, for some, they could really imagine this virtual workplace to be part of their work life. For example, while traveling or while in hotel rooms, when they cannot really control their physical environment, then they really find value in being able to retreat to a familiar workspace where they can design their surroundings according to their preferences. And for others, it was more a dystopian scenario where they feared losing connection to coworkers and just being distracted by these shiny objects in virtual environments and not really getting into the flow. So it was striking to see how different people react to the same experience.
Yeah, that's quite perspective. Based on your findings, how might Metaverse applications be used more effectively to support focused solo work?
Yeah, so my recommendation would be to definitely not recreate the offices that we now have in buildings, essentially corporate offices, in virtual spaces. But unfortunately, that's what we see. So if you look at the advertisements and how these virtual workplace apps look like, they look surprisingly similar to a corporate office. You have like social bump into spaces, these open plan offices that all invite distractions. And I would recommend to not do this and start with a blank canvas and not use the sometimes flawed design of corporate offices as a way to design these new virtual workplaces.
Great. And what limitations did you encounter in this study, and how might future research build on your work?
Yes, so some limitations that also reviewers saw in our study refer to the research design. So it is definitely true, and we also designed it that way, that we did not very strictly control the experience in virtual reality that we had with our participants. So it could be hard to compare one to the other, as you would expect it in other experimental settings. And this is something that future research could do, to test our findings and theory in a more controlled environment.
Great. And what did you personally learn from conducting this research? Was there a key insight or challenge that stood out?
Yeah, it was interesting because this topic is is a little bit polarizing, in a sense that some people very much oppose the idea of working in the metaverse, and some people are fascinated about this idea. And when I receive feedback written through reviewers, or when I presented this research, it was interesting to see how people project their own viewpoint onto us and the study. So, for example, one reviewer was not very fond of the whole idea and said, okay, why should we even help people to shield themselves against distractions? If I don't want to be distracted by my phone, I can just put it in the drawer or leave it in another room. But this is not the reality for most knowledge workers out there. And if you know how enticing apps on our phone are designed, and how hard it is to not look at your phone sometimes, then this is not as easy as it sounds. So this was one learning. We're all different, but I think the metaverse and these apps, they should account for that and allow us to customize our experience as much as possible.
That's a very clear explanation. In your view, what role could the metaverse play in shaping the future of work, especially in contrast to today's remote or hybrid model?
Yeah, so with this research, we're not advocating that we move solo workers or solo knowledge workers to the metaverse, and spend more time isolated. What we want is, we should understand and use virtual workspaces and the metaverse as an opportunity to test things out and use it as a space where we can rethink everything, and we can design the workplace in a new way. And then from the learnings, if we try out what could be or what is possible, we could then go back and into our physical workplaces where we meet real humans and make adjustments, because we might find out what we actually prefer by using a virtual space to test it out. So it can actually make our workplaces better in the end.
So great. Thanks again, Julian. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your insight on this research. I wish you all the best with your future work.
Thank you, Hedy.
Thanks for listening to this Digital Work Diaries podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback and questions. Drop us a comment below, and we look forward to catching you next time.